Hi everyone, Yasas, que Carlos Tirtate to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a cozy and comforting red chicken chili. It's kind of like a soup. It's in between a soup and a stew. It's so good, you guys, and it's so simple to make. Let's get started. All right, so we're going to begin by preparing the ingredients. So in a bowl over here, I have 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. But you can definitely use chicken breast if you want. You're just going to have to adjust the boiling time, and we'll talk about that later on. You can use a whole chicken with the bone in. It's totally up to you, but I find that the chicken thighs are very flavorful and juicy even after you boil them for 30 minutes. So set that aside. I'm not even going to season them. I'm going to cut this large onion up. First I'm going to peel it, and then I'm just going to roughly chop it. And then I have 2 bell peppers. You can use any color that you like. And I'm just gonna dice these up and set them aside with the onions. You just wanna make sure everything is ready. I have a large Dutch oven heating over medium-high heat. I'm gonna add about 1/4 cup or so of olive oil, and I'm gonna brown the chicken thighs on both sides, about 5 to 6 minutes per side. They all fit in the pot, so I'm gonna put them in all together and wait a little longer than I did to flip them over because they are getting stuck. If they're getting stuck, that means they're not ready to be flipped. But it's going to be fine. It's still going to taste good even if they're shredded because we're going to end up shredding the chicken up anyway. Once the chicken is browned on both sides, take it out and just put it in a bowl and set it aside. Put the onions and the bell peppers in the pot with a little pinch of salt, and definitely reduce the heat so that way they don't burn, and just cook them until they're nice and soft. That's going to take about 8 minutes or so. If your pot is very hot, turn the heat off for a few minutes. It's also going to help deglaze the pot. If you have some bits of chicken that are stuck to the bottom like I do, those are going to add lots of flavor. So just let the pot sit turned off for a little bit over the heat, and then after a few seconds or about a minute, turn it back on to about medium heat until the onions and the bell peppers get nice and soft. Next, I have 6 garlic cloves here that are grated. These are frozen because I buy my garlic in big bags already peeled, and I puree it and I just freeze it. So I'm just gonna put the garlic in here until it's warm through and fragrant. That's also gonna take a few seconds. If your garlic is fresh and not frozen, it's gonna warm through even quicker. You don't want to cook it too much, otherwise it's going to get a very bitter flavor. And as you can see, the chicken that was stuck to the bottom looks like it's burnt, but it's not. As soon as I add the rest of the ingredients in here, you're going to see that the pan or the pot is going to get deglazed, and that is going to add so much flavor to the soup. Once the garlic is warmed through, I have 3 cans of fire roasted tomatoes that I've just pureed. I like to puree my tomatoes until they're not totally smooth, but most of the chunkiness is gone because the kids don't really like chunky tomatoes in stews and soups. So they're 3 15-ounce cans of fire roasted tomatoes. They're nice and smoky. And a secret ingredient that I always add to any tomato-based dish is roasted red peppers. They're stored in brine, so I like to drain the brine out. This is about 1 or 2. They're chopped up, so just a little handful will do. I like to puree those together with the tomatoes, and I'm going to add that to the pot with the seasonings. So I'm going to add some salt, some freshly cracked black pepper, a heaping teaspoon of paprika. Also add a heaping teaspoon of ground cumin, a nice helping of crushed red pepper flakes if you like them, otherwise leave them out. And then I have these peppers. These are jalapeno peppers that are in a brine. I love them. They just add the perfect amount of heat to this dish, but it's not too much. I'm just gonna add some chicken broth to this too. 6 cups about is what I'm adding. And I'm also gonna rinse out the blender just so that the little bit of tomatoes that's left at the bottom does not get wasted. Give everything a nice mix, and you'll see that any chicken that's stuck to the bottom of the pot is gonna begin to release. You're just gonna wanna bring this mixture up to a boil, then reduce the heat to a low, put the lid on, and let it simmer on low for about 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, the chicken should be fully cooked. Go ahead and take the chicken out of the pot, and then you can quickly shred it using 2 forks and add it back in with 2 cans of beans. You could use your favorite beans in this. So I'm using a can of pinto beans and a can of cannellini beans. I love cannellini beans because they have a really smooth flavor and they almost melt into the chili and they thicken it. I also have some frozen corn that I'm adding to this just for a little bit of sweetness. I add a lot of frozen corn because my kids love it. And at this point, you're just going to want to taste the seasoning and see if it needs a little bit more salt or pepper or maybe something else that you like is missing, you could add that too. Give it a nice mix and let this simmer for another 10 to 15 minutes so all of the flavors can come together and so that those beans can have a chance to thicken the sauce. And once it's done, give it a mix. Keep in mind that if it is looking a little bit too soupy to you, it is gonna thicken a lot as it sits. Those beans really soak up the liquid, so don't worry about it. You could always thin it out a little bit more by adding more broth to it if you like. If you want to thicken it a little bit, there is a little secret ingredient that I've seen people add, which is cream cheese. It adds some richness to it too. I'm not adding it because I like to serve sour cream on the side, which also adds creaminess and it also thickens it a little bit. But if you want a little bit of a richer flavor, you could add 8 ounces of really soft cream cheese to this, mix it up until it melts into the soup and it'll thicken, and it'll also add just another layer of creaminess and richness to it. But it is ready to be served. I'm gonna serve this with lots of toppings, and here they are. I have some avocado here that I've diced, some cilantro that I finely chopped. I know some people don't like cilantro. You can definitely use parsley instead if you prefer. I would also add some scallions to this if I had some, but I think I'm completely out. Scallions are really nice in it. They add freshness, and lemon juice is also really good, but sour cream, I would not leave it out. Also some cheddar cheese. Shredded cheddar goes so good with this dish. And of course, garlic bread to soak up that goodness. So just like that, the chicken chili is ready. It comes together in under an hour, and it's so easy to put together just like you just saw. And you will notice that a lot of the traditional spices that are usually used in making chilies and like Mexican food are not in this recipe, and that's because I usually don't have them on hand. And my thing is I don't really like to go and buy ingredients that I won't use over and over again in other recipes. They tend to get wasted that way. So I'm using what I have, and it still has so much flavor and it's so good. So if you do like those flavors, like the adobo chilies and the chipotle peppers, you can add them in here. Those are traditional things that are added to the soup. But trust me, taste it and make it, and I think you're gonna love it as is. Time for the taste test. I wanna make sure I get a jalapeno in here and some chicken. Oh my goodness. So good. It's a little tiny bit smoky, but not too smoky. I'm not a fan of super smoky flavors. I know some people are, but I just can't eat it. If I smell it and it's smoky, or if it tastes smoky, I won't eat it. It kind of makes me nauseous. I don't know. It's just a thing for me, but if you guys like the smoky flavors, go ahead and add the smoked paprika and whatever else, smoked peppers. They'll be really good and give you that flavor that you're looking for, but I'm not looking for that flavor, and I think this is perfect. You get a little bit of vinegariness from the peppers that I added, the jalapeno peppers that were in that brine. Even though I drained them, they still taste so good, not too spicy, and they did leave that flavor. The corn makes it nice and sweet. The sauce in there is just perfectly hearty, yet not too tomatoey. I'm not a huge fan of too tomatoey sauces unless it's a Sunday sauce, like the one that I just posted a little while ago, my lamb Sunday sauce. If you haven't made it, give it a try. I think you guys are gonna love this one. You can serve it as is with some tortilla, definitely all the toppings that I set out with it. You should not leave them out because they make it even more creamy and more delicious. But I'm also serving this today with my roasted garlic bread. I posted this recipe a few days ago, so definitely check it out and give it a try. It goes so well together with this. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. If you want to print this recipe out, head on over to the website, dimitrasdishes.com. It freezes well too, so if you're going to make a bigger batch, once it cools down, you could put it in freezer-safe containers, and it'll keep fresh in the freezer for 2 to 3 months, which is perfect for those busy days where you don't have time to cook. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Yes, us.